Documentaries. History. Insights. Interviews. Sheps Deep Dive. And welcome to Sheps Deep Dive. And this week we've got our original special guest. Yeah, he was here at the beginning of Sheps when it was just Sheps and a bit of deep. Now it's Sheps Deep Dive and he's back. He's Fatboyslick. He's in the house.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
Having you back? I've been waiting. How was
sorry.
How was your buddy's temple? I thought you was meditating under a waterfall for a month.
I wished. What was the last one we did?
Lost Boys.
Well, you see, maybe I.
Did you want to finish on a massive high? Because that
was it. Maybe that was it. Maybe I just thought in my head that was closure.
That was your 10th one as well. That was your
10th one.
That
wasn't 10.
I think it was.
That was not 10.
That's the 10th one you did, yeah.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so what's this? Is this like Lost Boys 2, which is like shit? That's what's going to happen.
No, I was thinking of moving more like Back to the Future. Gets better and better. Yes, Fatboyslick is back. We're doing a film.
Or films.
A film and films and cartoons and comic books and online gaming and flaming not online gaming. It's The Matrix.
You wanted to know what The Matrix is, Neo?
It's the question that drives us, Neo. It's the question that brought you here.
It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. This is a war.
The machines are digging.
And we are soldiers.
They're boring from the surface straight down to Zion.
As long as the Matrix exists, the human race will never be free.
You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Matrix. I love The Matrix 1.
Yeah. Right, let's get out of it straight away.
There's definitely bigger Matrix nerds than me, 100%, who probably know the whole of the mythology, played the shit game, watched the animation, which was apparently quite good, as, you know, edit the fucking Wikipedia. I don't do any of that. I love the first film. There's some really good themes in it that I wrote an essay on at uni. And I was hugely disappointed by 2 and 3, but I think I can talk about it.
The thing is,
let's dumb it down for our audience, yeah?
Yeah, let's dumb it down. Oh, yeah. Well, for myself as well. So, with The Matrix, though, you always have to think, like, I love the first, like you says. The second and third, I was thinking, what the hell? And then the animation came out, and that explained it a hell of a lot more.
What was it called? The Animatrix or something?
Animatrix, yeah. But they explained it like it started off with they tried to separate the robots away from man so that they could like live on their own little island and have their own like robot place.
Right.
And then they went to United Nations to have like, can we be declared as a civilization? And they said no and nuked the place, and that what caused the Matrix because the robots rebelled, sort of like Skynet, Terminator type. They rebelled, right? and then the humans thought the only way to stop the robots would be to block out the sun, dickheads.
Well,
Did you never see Highlander 2?
Is that what they're doing in Highlander 2? I knew the ozone layer had gone. So I was trying to write out the mythology of this, the Matrix universe, let's say. So I knew machines had taken over the world, but I didn't know the background as to why they'd taken over the world. Right. So I reckon if you've got some casual listeners who've watched the films, may not have got it from the start, should we try and go through the mythology of it, why, what is happening?
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it.
Yeah, let's go. Right. Let's go from the one. Yeah,
because I had to go away and read it because I'd kind of forgotten. But also when I was reading about it, I was like, I remember that. I was like, but actually, it's so layered and unexplained, which is why I think so many people disliked the second and third films. Because the first film, they were it explained stuff quite up front. It presented to you an amazing alternative world, and you were like,
yeah,
wow, imagine if that was the case, like the Terminator, machines had taken over and everyone lived as batteries in an AI world.
You can sort of see that. Amazing. That's a cracking idea, yeah.
The second and third one, trying to explain why they exist, because they are errors in the code, because there needed to be errors to balance out. It's just so, not only is it difficult to comprehend, but I totally think the second and third film, particularly third film, really arrogantly explained it at such a kind of complicated level that you'd sit there. There's a degree of films where you go along with it, you got to think, but that it was just I just found it hugely incomprehensible. It took multiple views, which a lot of good films do, but I just found it was just after 3 hours. In fact, at least an hour of the third film is of them shooting a bloody flying robot thing.
Yeah.
It's a difficult film to rewatch.
For being spectacular, it hits all the marks there, and the groundbreaking in the cinematography is brilliant. But they just went way over the top with philosophizing their existence in number 2, which was just it was like, oh my god, they're just wanking himself off with like, I've got a load of money, here's a load of money, you can do what the hell you wanted with it. And it makes you think like it could have well been a perfect standalone movie, The Matrix, and just left. If that was the case, if they was gone, yeah, but if they would have just gone off and if you would have known what happened in 2, I would have thought, just leave it as that then until the animatronics one come out, or turn that into a movie, because that explains the prequel to this.
Well, it's a bit like what's happened with Terminator 1. They left it. He had no plans for a sequel. In fact, James Cameron makes movies when the technology advances, not based on commercial reasons. Hence why it's taken so long to make the next Avatars. And that's why it took ages to make Terminator 2, because he wanted the technology to develop. It's probably one of the reasons why I went back to it. But I think he was happy for T1 to stay as it was. And he was happy for T2 to stay where as it was.
Yeah.
And so they could have done it, but the pressure from
it's a mountain pressure. The film was 60 million to make. It took nearly $500 million, and at that time, 1999? That is probably that's like on the side of like a Cameron film, isn't it, and stuff like that. And being new directors, they would have just been had everything thrown at them, saying, "Do another, come on, do another." Yeah,
completely. Right. So how about I try and explain the overall story?
Yeah.
And you stop me if I get it wrong. Right.
Okay.
So machines have taken over the world.
Yep.
They've waged war with humans, and essentially they've won. Right. So the humans, but before that happened, the machines are powered by the sun.
Yeah.
So the humans thought, let's block the sun. And they did that, but as a consequence, they actually ended up killing humanity because it killed the biodiversity of the Earth. And then the machines learned to use humans instead as their power source, i.e. make us as batteries. Yeah?
Yeah, that's
so
right.
They farmed and harvested us. Okay. But then they learned that without a kind of stimulant, without hope, without the conscious being activated, humans as batteries didn't last long. So then they created a virtual reality world called The Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
To put people into. And the Matrix is set in the 20th century, because that's when the film's made.
Yeah.
This is where it starts getting complicated. But the Matrix was too perfect and didn't give people choice, and as a consequence, people rejected the Matrix and fell out of it.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they learned that they had to put errors into the Matrix and then try and so people could fall out, but they survived longer in it.
Yeah, well, what they needed to do was to introduce choice to them. That was the whole point, wasn't it? They'd never had that in the algorithm, that person had a choice. So as soon as they introduce a choice, that allows the person to go more or less what they think their own way.
Yeah, but the problem is that some people, their body still, their strength of choice still rejects the Matrix and would still eject themselves from it and escape.
Yeah.
Right? So then the machines need to try and keep as many people in, but still have choice in there. So what they did, they realised that if they give too many people, if they control the choice, but people still reject, they have to control those who come out because they'll just rebel. So then they create the dynamic so people do leave because they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And that they think they're forming some kind of rebellion. So they control that rebellion so they can extinguish it when they want.
That's how I
No?
get it. Well,
yeah.
Yeah and no, because there's a point. I know we don't want to move on to. We're just going to have a look at it as a whole story. But in number 2, when he meets the architect, he says this is the 6th time it's come round.
Yeah.
The 6th Matrix. And at each point in time, he gets a choice to kill all those people which are in Zion, or that place, the heaven, you know what I mean, that broke free, or he goes off in the other way and he takes the alternate route that he hasn't took before. So they can't comprehend that because even though there was an element of choice, they always depended on him heavily on the choice of him killing his own people.
Yeah, so, this is the thing, right? So he jumped to the chosen one.
Yeah.
So they... It's so difficult to explain, isn't it?
It is really difficult. But the way I see it, because there's different ways to see it, and I don't think there's anything definitive answer out there unless you get everything and study it. But the way I see it is, Neo is there, the chosen one is there, but he's still an algorithm built within the AI machine. Because within the AI and the product of the programming, it also had rebel programming, because they had to build so many AIs to combat the different choices. They had to then some of those rebelled because some of them was deleted and put to one side, which explained the French gangster guy and that world. Them people had these weird powers. They was like found within the main master system, and they was like pushed to one side, and they buried it like a rogue program. Like when it's sort of like Norton antivirus is a good way to produce that. Is it many times you get a choice to delete it or it just gets stored, and they're stored archived rogue data's what's going on.
And that's why the machines recognise they need to reset the Matrix every so long
to cleanse it.
To cleanse it.
Yeah.
So they need to reset that, but at the same time, these people that they freed, that they try and control this rebellion, they need to kill at the same time as well. So they've kind of got 2 objectives, but they can't just kill everyone in Zion, in the rebels who live in a place called Zion.
Yeah.
Because then people keep leaving the Matrix because that's what happens. They can't then control them if Zion doesn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they can't just restart the Matrix because then everyone will just become free at the point they restart it.
The trouble that they have is the people that leave Zion still has the ability to plug into the Matrix.
So
that's why they can't just kill them off, because they know that they have to go in and they're manipulating it from the inside and coming back in and out. Now, if they didn't have that ability to go back into the Matrix, then they could have just killed them and none would be the wiser. They'd be just like dead batteries, they're gone. But because they've got so much interlayers within the Matrix themselves and manipulating things, it'll cause too much of a rush in the Matrix. So that's why, like you said, they've got to do both at the same time.
Yeah, but to control that rebellion, to make sure that those rebels do certain things to lead them to the point where they can turn everything off. They have to give them hope, and they create a false hope by creating the Oracle within the Matrix. They know they'll plug into the Matrix. The Oracle is created by the machines to help humans, because they need to give them hope to keep it going.
Exactly.
And then I guess the opposite of the Oracle is what's called the Architect, who built the leader of the Matrix.
Well, also, there's a great point where the Architect turns around and even though his Oracle is his counterpart, he even says that if it was her, you've got to look at it like she's the mother and I'm the father. They both don't exist without each other. They had to. They built that Oracle to be, like you said, that golden hope of opportunity to lead them down that path to their own self-destruction. Like you said, it's got to constantly keep happening. But,
it's an interesting one, isn't it? They create it to create. They have to create their own enemy to a degree. The machines do.
Yeah, so they can control it.
But what happens is that the Oracle, over the years, learned as well.
Yes,
although
exactly.
She's created, and that's why she kind of creates the one, the savior, which is in our case Neo, and tries to give everyone help to believe in Neo, and she gives Neo, or the one, the ability to manipulate the Matrix. He actually gets the master code of the Matrix.
Yeah.
And so then the machines, when they learn this, they realise they actually need that in order to reset the Matrix as well anyway.
I'm trying to free your mind, Neo, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
But then you've got the massive part of it. What took me a few watches, like you said, it took you a few times to watch it, is the manipulation of Mr. Smith. Now, Mr. Smith has been there, like I said, like an antivirus to be able to shut down things and sort things out quite quickly within the Matrix, because he can take over a human like dream world or within the Matrix he was in. But then when Neo passes through him, he again gets a lot of programming for him to be able to go rogue. So when he's manipulating people, then he can more or less build his own army within there.
And that's why we join. That's why we join this. That's why we join the whole story at this point, because typically it goes through a cycle where they build the Matrix, a rebellion is created by the machines, let it develop, get the one created. He figures out, he gets given the choice towards the end of the Matrix's life cycle to restart it or just wipe out the whole of humanity, which will also wipe out the machines, and he always chooses to save humanity.
Yeah.
But we join in this cycle because the Agent Smith becomes like a virus within it.
Yeah.
He was the antivirus trying to remove the hackers, but he's now a virus because he gets imprinted by the one, Neo.
Yeah.
He gets a bit of Neo's code in him. And that's why that's why this one we focus on the story, because you have that at play at the same time.
Yeah, the way his virus works of Mr. Smith is Agent Smith is very typically to the worm, and the way the Russian hackers use it and Iranian hackers, where it goes into your computer and rather than destroy it, it slowly takes over all the minion parts of programming which you're not going to be looking into, and then gets stronger and stronger. So in this part, it takes him a while to get to that strength that he's able to take over the Oracle into, and that's when he becomes more or less recognized. But it's too late then. The system's gone out of control, and that's when the actual system requires Neo, and he says it.
Well, when Neo comes to make his choice, he does what no other previous version of him has done, and chooses to not restart the Matrix and humanity, because he does it because he loves someone, and that emotion had never been experienced by machines. They don't understand it.
Yeah.
And so he goes off to just fight, and the machines panic because actually they realise they need Neo to get rid of the virus, because they can't defeat the virus that's in their system or bring them down anyway.
Is that there?
And do you know why? Do you know how is Agent Smith defeated?
Okay, I can picture it visually, but I can't explain how he does it.
What, they have a big fight?
Yeah, where they have that
Well,
stupidly big fight and it goes on
They
and
have a
on.
ridiculous fight, yeah. Well, what it is that Neo, throughout the film, always has to make choices, and he has a choice, and he chooses to fight Agent Smith, and he chooses to give in, to be defeated, right? He has that choice.
Yeah.
Agent Smith doesn't have a choice in anything he does. He can't, he's a computer program, so he can't make choices, and his program is to just override everything, compete and fight. So when he learns that big fight, that if he actually overtakes Neo and kind of like consumes him, Neo's actually the antivirus to him. So if he consumes him, he's actually going to destroy himself.
And therefore,
But
Neo
Smith
had to die to finish him off.
Yeah, and Agent Smith is angered because he can't make choices. So he goes, I know I'm going to die if I consume you, but I can't stop consuming you.
Ah, that explains that. Right. I was glad there was some bits we knew.
Is that explained in the effing film?
No, but you know what? Within half an hour of us two chatting about it, I reckon if anyone listens to this, or hopefully listen to this, we've given quite a bit of an insight there. Because both of us have watched it multiple times, and I've read the comics as well, and it did actually was conceived originally as a comic, wasn't it?
I think so.
The Wachowskis brothers was
sisters.
working. Oh, sorry, sisters now, but then was brothers. Yeah, they originally conceived the idea in Marvel, but they didn't want to do it.
No, it's not very Marvel-y though, is it?
No, it's quite dark.
So I believe it, and that's why when the film ends, there's a truce between humans and machines, and the old Matrix doesn't work. So there's a new Matrix. In fact, the architect doesn't build the 8th Matrix with the Oracle as part of it, because they'd never experienced or come off as a consequence of seeing human love. They create a computer. There's a computer program that was created out of 2 programs' love for each other. So there's a young girl called Sari or something in the film who represents love and human emotion, and they let her build the 8th Matrix. So that's why at the end of the 3rd film, that's why the Oracle and the architect sat there together looking at like a sunrise and going, this will be interesting. What happens next?
Oh, right. I understand that now.
So, do you know, I think it's in the 3rd film when Neo's in this kind of purgatory space and he sees 2 programs trying to get on the train with a young girl. Because those programs are defunct, so they shouldn't exist, but they met up and they had that girl who was like as a consequence of 2 programs loving each other. So they're actually trying to escape from the agents and the Matrix because they're going to get wiped out.
Oh my God, you just blew my mind. Yes, I get that. Because I understood that train bit and the man on the train was the link, wasn't it? That was how you could pull things out and move things to one side. Like the French guy and stuff like that must have used a very similar way to pull in the people he wanted to join him. Yeah, I mean, bury them in that like weird gangster state of a universe he created.
But there's just so many metaphors though that are just so abstract. It's so hard to follow. Do
you think
there's too much going on in that film?
That's what I was going to say.
I can't remember what the Keymaster, whatever he's called. I can't remember what he does. I think does he get them to access the source code? I think. And this is the thing with the Matrix. They've had 20 years to build up the mythology. So there's like wiki sites, there's articles, as I said, all the comics, the cartoons, which just goes back and explain it all. I haven't read all that. I'm sorry.
What I find is though, they didn't know. I think the writers at the time didn't fully understand the way to go or the history of it. And I think
I got that impression.
I think it would have been.
They spent so long on the first film, they got it right, and then they were like, "Oh shit, we need a backstory now to explain everything and move it forward."
Yeah.
And I think they struggled. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I reckon there was pressured into making it, and they did it. They could have got away with the first one, the second one, and then what I think what they should have done is done a prequel, and then or done the first and then a prequel, just to show that what that cartoon version of it is amazing. If they did that as a film, that would have been tremendous. But it might have been edging it more towards Terminator, like you says, and they like the philosophy side, don't they?
That's the thing, though. It's hindsight, isn't it? Because they made the two films, and then it wasn't until a couple of years after that they made the animation. Or did they come in between? I can't remember.
I think
they had so much on their plate, though, didn't they? No wonder it felt really heavy. I was so excited for the second and third film. I remember watching it in a massive cinema, walking away thinking, yeah, the action scenes were great, but didn't really know what was happening.
Yeah, that's where they're famous, aren't they, for making a film which was groundbreaking at the time because of the use of the 360-degree multiple camera shots.
What time?
And that blew everyone away. And the fact that it came roughly, way before everyone started going mad on Marvel stuff. This is very like a different superhero concept. Yeah. You know what I mean?
We had some shit sci-fi films in the 90s.
The only one you can ever remember is Terminator 2. You know what I mean? And Stargate, and then
yeah, but I was like 91 though. What Stargate was crap.
Yeah.
There some bad sci-fi films in the 90s. This just completely blew them out of the water.
This was completely. This was off the time as well, and extremely stylized. Like, all the costumes and the settings and those shades he wears, and even the way they had the, the music in it complemented exactly what was going on at the time.
Well, do you want me to, which one, what are those you want me to talk about? So, let's take the music.
Yeah, music, which is brilliant in it, isn't it?
So, it's really, the music they chose is what I call hard, big beat. So there's a lot of big beat artists in there.
Yeah.
So if you take Fatboy Slim, he makes kind of happy big beat, quirky, catchy stuff. The Chemical Brothers make some clever stuff, which isn't laden with hooks, but it's quite deep, it's quite clubby. And then you've got a load of artists who make really rough sounding stuff that was quite its roots in techno. Wouldn't really be played in.
It's like industrial type stuff, is it?
Yeah, yeah. So they used a lot of that, but they used a song by Rob Dugan called "Clubbed to Death."
Yeah.
That was
in the charts, wasn't it, as well?
Well, the thing is, that had come out about 4 years prior to the film.
Oh, I never knew that.
He was so, yeah. He made that in the peak of Massive Attack and stuff like that, and they'd heard the song, they loved it, made it. And Rob D, I think he was known at the time, or Rob Dugan. He kind of made a brief musical career in it. He did a couple of original songs for the second film. He released a really good album, all orchestral music with beats in, and then he disappeared. Just disappeared. Disappeared. Didn't make any music for 20 years, and then a couple of years ago he released an album, very similar to his first album. I think he went and just kind of, in the money he made, he bought a winery in France.
Jesus. Well, you can imagine everyone. The soundtrack alone from this, the first film, I think that hit the charts, didn't it? And I know this song must have went back into the charts after it became famous.
Completely. It's a great song.
There's a million different remixes all over as well.
Yeah, it is I would definitely, if you can, search out the Rob Dugan remixes he's made. And his album, which I just can't remember what the album's called. He's only got one, so there won't be hard to find. But he's got a really great remix of Moby's Porcelain.
Oh, is it?
Completely transforms the song. Yeah, it's a fucking great remix, actually. Yeah.
But it
was very
stylized, wasn't it?
film.
Yeah. It did remind me a little bit of, which comes on the back of Blade, the first one. Everything black clothes. The same type of black and white images, even though it's colour a lot.
What you're kind of referring to, so the way it's filmed is very. Which one do I start with? So the way it's filmed is quite comic booky.
Yeah.
And it's very what is called film noir.
Yeah.
So lots of kind of funny angles. Lighting's a certain way, so especially the first 5 minutes of the film in that skyscraper or whatever, the apartment block where they have the fight, that's very much that's really stylized like film noir. And I can't remember what the other. There was a black and white film that came out not a few years after. A comic book one. Is it Frank Miller or something? Famous one. It's got those people in, like Bruce Willis and stuff. You know, that's film noir. That's a classic film noir done cartoon, and that would have been heavily influenced by The Matrix. So they do a lot of that. But what you'll notice is when you're in The Matrix, everything has a green sheen to it. Everything's got a very subtle hint of green. Right? And even sometimes when the camera moves throughout the scenes, it does so by going through like television screens and stuff like that. So it's trying to show you that when it's that colour, that's The Matrix. And everyone's very neatly dressed. Everyone's very uniform. The shots are very angular and straight on, very symmetrical.
Yeah.
And that's because The Matrix wants neatness and order. And then some people even wear like green ties or green braces. There's like hints of very strong green. So that's to tell you that you're in The Matrix. Whereas when you're not in The Matrix, everything is brown, kind of grey blues. Like the scenery isn't symmetrical. There's lots of things sticking out in the way. It's very muddy, very earthy.
Yeah.
So that was that was two like really conscious things that they did there in terms of the style. And then the way some of the things are framed as well, because they love video games and they like the comic book. A lot of the action sequences are framed like Street Fighter 2.
Yes, you've got a hell of a lot of one-on-one battles of like a Street Fighter type of battle.
One-on-one, yeah. And even that bit in the second film where they're fighting in the foyer of the kind of posh-looking building.
Oh yeah, it's like the opening scene to the film, isn't it? That. It's more or less. Is that the one? Apparently, they spent 10 days making that, and there's no CGI. The whole lot of that is actual pyrotechnics.
The one where it's got the staircase going up either side I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh,
it's like the chandelier in the middle.
Yeah.
See, that's framed like it's bloody Super Smash Bros. On the Nintendo. Do you know what I mean? It's trying to show you, like, it's trying to make an art out of it.
Right.
Whereas, if you look at the Bourne films, which came out a couple of years later, or even a year or so later, they popularised the style to film fighting now, which is really with what's called a steady cam.
Yeah.
The irony being it's unsteady and really close up. So if you watch the fighting in the Bourne films, you like feel every punch, you feel every attack.
Yeah, it's very
because
close contact.
You're really close up. Yeah. That style's continued up to then. Lots of action films have that now. In fact, they all do. They don't really present it like The Matrix anymore. But the argument is that in The Matrix, they didn't want you to feel the punches and the fights because it's not real.
Yeah.
So there's a real argument around that as well. But it was very cleverly thought about it.
It's funny how they thought about so much, yet there was only very, very early directors, weren't they?
Yeah, they'd only made Bound, which has been a success. I mean...
Was that thriller they made? They made like a thriller before it, but the only reason they made it was to show people what they could do, because they wanted to make The Matrix itself. Because they didn't really want them at first to make The Matrix, saying they didn't know what they was doing.
Yeah, Bound was like the most successful one, and it was a thrill. If you watch it, actually, stylistically, it's very similar to The Matrix. You have some of the shots are very clever, the colour schemes, the light is really clever. But actually, if you look at the whole back catalogue of their films, I think only the Matrix films and Bound are the ones that have made any money. If you take in marketing costs, which aren't usually shown on the bottom line of making a film, because they're used to promote the film, I think every other film they've made has lost a shitload of money, which is nuts.
Do you reckon that's because, I think that, like very similar to, we go back again to Back to the Future, like they had that one story, what they want.
No, I don't know. Maybe what in the same way you're saying Bob Gale's never made anything other than Back to the Future.
Well,
had he done it, might have been crap.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
It could have been. I mean, they made Have you watched Street Racer? Visually, there's some really good bits, but it's just boring.
Yeah.
These Fender, it's boring. I think they started to believe their own hype and thought they were.
I thought that when they made V for Vendetta, because I thought they wanted to really connect with this subculture which was booming. And, you know what I mean, The Matrix seemed to release a lot of that anarchic, anarchy himself, and on the internet. They seem to have a lot going with that. I mean, they think they've been connected with some quite verbal in interviews about their anarchic approach to politics and society, and that's when they did V for Vendetta. That was already a popular graphic novel, wasn't it? Before,
yeah, it was, yeah.
I
think they were trying to repeat the success. I just wonder if they. Part of me wonders if they were a one-trick pony.
It could be the reason why they've gone back to it. Matrix 4?
Yes, the Matrix 4. Is that a direct sequel? Or is it a prequel? Or it's got... So, Keanu Reeves is in it, Neo's in it, but Morpheus isn't, Trinity is. Is it what happens in the next stage? Like, what story... It's taken them this long to decide to do it. What story have they got to tell? Is it an actual The Next Day sequel? Like, do you know? Does anyone know?
I have no idea. I know that they have filmed bits of it and they're keeping quite quiet about it, aren't they? But like you said, they've done those three and sort of messed up the third. Could say that they messed up the second, really. They then did the animatronics and did a load of films. I honestly think they're just going back to the Matrix as this is going to get bums on the seats. I really worry watching it, thinking and they just go, because of where can they go with it? The animatronics explain the background and the history for the Matrix. The Matrix concluded with him dying, so what are they going to do? Bring him back again?
Well, I looked at it, so they've got two people who are helped. So only one of the Wachowski
Lana
sisters is doing it. The other one's not involved. They've brought in a guy called David Mitchell and some Alexander Herman to help write it. David Mitchell, interestingly, from Southport. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. That's cool.
I'm confident. I like to think that they know what they're doing, but it's hard after the second and third film. Really, I felt betrayed of the audience a little bit. It was a great spectacle, but I think they asked too much of audiences. I think
the first one, brilliant. Everyone loved it. They jumped on the second one, and then they threw out the third one. But even through that short amount of time, from 1999 to 2003, when they brought the last one out, I think the third one, people just had enough. I think that it was over stylized, and from the first Matrix to that one, you also had a load of copycat films which similar way came out, very stylized. I think one was called Gattaca, I think, where they're wearing like all black clothes, and I think people moved. I think time moved so fast that people just thought, "Oh right, we've seen this now," and they couldn't complete it.
I felt like they were trying to create the next new bullet time.
Yeah.
In the second and third film. So I can't remember which one it was. It might be the second or third one. But the first time that Agent Smith replicates himself, so Neo has a fight with 150 Agent Smiths, was the first time that had ever been done. But I think it might be a step too far. I mean, even at the time, I remember thinking this is impressive, but it's so obviously CGI.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite Uncanny Valley. I was like, I see what they're doing. It's great idea, but unlike Bullet Time, which felt real because it was real, because it wasn't CGI too much, was it? Except the bullet, it was actual real physical cameras in a circle taking kind of time lapse shots. Whereas that it just became CGI with there was no practicality to it.
Yeah, it seemed to be hunting for that one thing.
That's what it was. It felt like they were hunting for it.
I really think after the Matrix, they got a lot of smoke floating up their ass, and they thought they were like the next Cameron. Cameron moves from different movie to different movie, though. That's the difference. He moves from different movies and has a stylistic approach and spend years creating that approach, doesn't he? And working on the cameras and everything. So
he makes a film when he thinks he's got something to say and a new thing to show. Whereas these guys,
I think they was more or less being young guys as well and being new to the scene. They just a load of people went, "You need to do the next one now."
Where's the next Matrix? Yeah. So if I look, V for Vendetta actually did make money. The Invasion, never even heard of it. Lost a load of money. Speed Racer lost money. It was crap. Cloud Atlas I never even watched it.
Oh, that was supposed to be the unfilmable film, unfilmable book, and that didn't even break even.
No, and then Jupiter Ascending.
Oh, that even the posters turned me off. That
The word Jupiter Ascending just sounds like a 760s Doctor Who episode.
Nearly cost that film nearly cost what, over 3 times as much as the original Matrix, and didn't even make its money back.
Space opera. Even the word phrase space opera strikes fear into most film goers.
And it did. No one went.
No one went. Like a shit.
And now they've gone back to the Matrix.
Right. So if people didn't know, so one of the Wachowski brothers, did they have a sex change? They're the transgender now.
Yeah,
become a woman.
Yeah.
So the Wachowski were brothers, a couple of years apart. They actually have 2 other sisters, you know.
Oh yeah, I've read about that.
So one of them, so they're called Larry and Andy. Now they're called Lana and Lisa. One of them I know definitely has become a trans woman. I read the other one had as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But he's still married to. He's married to a woman still, I believe. And I've not seen any pictures of what she looks like, other than the last one I saw. She was still looking like a man. So has she come out as a woman, but is still biologically, physically a man?
Oof, I wouldn't know. I think there's something like that.
Oh, I'd be into that.
I'll tell you one little thing, right? And right, I'm not saying it's how connected it is, right? But goes back to around 1994, and I was in.
So is this a story?
No, this is me. This is me.
Right,
it might have well been
right,
Matrix. It feels like the Matrix. Back in 1994, I went to Windermere with my mate, yeah, and we were staying in this youth hostel, and there was a load of Americans in there, and we was having a laugh and joke and stuff, and like playing backgammon at night, going out for a beer, and walking through the hills, having a sneaky spliff and all this type of thing.
Dogging,
yeah, dogging. And then we was chatting to these lads, and one of the lads was saying, "Oh, right, my cousin, blah blah blah, he's trying to get this film off the ground," and I was like, "Oh, right, what's all that about?" He goes, "It's all about where you're within, where everything what you see isn't the real world, and everyone's asleep at the time." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Yeah, well, it plays out that you think you're in this real world, but you're not. You're in this other place at the time." And I was thinking, oh, that sounds all right. Anyway, I kept in contact with pen pal with him, because pen pals in them days, listeners, didn't have internet. And then I kept in contact with him for about a year or so. And he would send me little snippets about this, like, yeah, I might try and get a job working with my cousin, hopefully doing this movie that takes off ground. Never heard anything from it. Then Matrix comes out, and I was like, it just sounded so real. He was from America. I can't remember what part of America, though. But he said he had this cousin, and he was talking about a movie he's trying to get off the ground where it was like within this person's dream world, and it was being run, and you didn't realise he was working. I was thinking, fuck, it must be that Matrix.
I'm just gonna sneeze. Bullshit.
No. Oh, that's not bullshit of me. I'm just saying it might be.
I mean, well, what was this guy's surname? If you suddenly turn around, oh, well, actually, it was called Wachowski, then yeah, it might be.
I don't know. I don't know. Ain't got a clue.
So back in '94, were they talking about this film back in '94? Because
could have well been.
Crikey, that'd be amazing.
It could have well been.
Did you still write to him? Who stopped first? Did they just stop saying, "Did you let us back"?
I think he just stopped. I think I remember me saying that I was going to go over to America, me and Ken, to New York, and if you wanted to meet up, and they were never heard out. I think just thought they're just a couple of nutters.
he's with his cousin going, "Do you remember that guy I told you about in England? Would you believe he's going to come? He wants to come with me. Oh my God, don't reply.
Don't reply. But that,
he was like a machine. He was like a machine.
And they're like,
I've got an idea. I've got an idea.
He had this big head. What? Like a massive head.
He kept saying he was the one.
I'm not saying it could be connected, but it always felt to me that, oh my god, it felt too much connected from 94 to 99. And then that came out, and I was like, wow, this film sounds like that lad was talking about.
That's funny, that's interesting. You never know.
Yeah.
It sounds like it could be.
Could well be. Yeah. But on the same
When did you first...
on the same day as well, two German lads who was playing a card game with us. One of them got hit by a car on the way back to youth
Where
hostel.
were you playing cards?
In a pub in Windermere. And one got hit by a car, and the other one got chucked out of the youth hostel for smoking spliffs.
The many adventures.
The many adventures of
You need to do an audible book where you just tell stories about your adventures around the world.
Maybe I'm like a version of Forrest Gump. You know what I mean? Maybe people meet me, and without them meeting me and giving the ideas to the Wachowskis, it might never happen. Can you imagine it comes out in years to come that Wachowskis say, yeah, we had the idea, but our cousin, who met this English nutter,
Cliff Shepherd, Forrest Gump.
Could well be.
Well, there's already some parallels. I mean...
Oh, thanks, mate.
My name is Forrest Gump. Cliff Shepherd.
I do run. I do run as well.
Do you dance? Do you play ping pong? So what's the catalogue of stuff that you could have influenced? So in the 80s and 90s, let's think what you influenced, right? So obviously you influenced The Matrix. You, created Wall Street somehow?
I reckon the internet.
Probably you.
That's probably me, because I was always trying to put computers together. I actually remember, here's the story, I actually remember sitting with my IT teacher, and he was like, look at this, Cliff. I'm sending a message to this Manchester University on his computer, and it was a black screen. There was no GUI or anything. It was literally just letters coming up on the screen. And he could write on it, and they would write to him back. And he was like, "Wow, look at that!" So I was at the beginning of the internet. Fucking hell!
I'm gonna sneeze again. Cliff, so you witnessed the first ever email. Okay, did you give? You can't remember his name. Did you give David Hasselhoff a leg up onto the Berlin Wall?
Yeah, that was me. I helped him. Actually, the Berlin Wall was all about me. I was having a piss. Someone ran up to me, said, you can't do that. Threw a brick. It hit the wall. Someone else started throwing bricks. The wall came down. Boom.
The wall came down. That was it. You were having another. You were trying to find somewhere to piss in the Gulf, and you were, sorry mate. And then as you're walking out, there's some kind of neighbour says, well, don't go in there. There's some guy with a long beard. He's like really angry because I had a piss. And that's it. They went and killed. They killed like Bin Laden or whatever.
If it wasn't for me, the world would be a different place. Think about it.
I think so. That's a really funny thing, that the Adventures of Cliff and how you influence pop culture and stuff. We could do something with that, I think.
Oasis were actually two posh lads from Surrey. They just walked around with me and Ken for a year.
In Melton Parswood pub.
He's really called Jeremy, and the other one called Roger.
George Gallagher and Jerry Gallagher.
You have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind.
Right, I think we come to the end of the pod.
And I think so. Is there anything else to cover on the Matrix?
Well, we've done the production, and we figured it out within fucking 40 minutes, which anyone listening to this, I'm going to put it out as, explanation of Matrix.
I hope so. It's a hard one to explain.
But we've had years of looking into it.
Yeah. Well, the only other thing I would say, what's interesting, and you could throw this back to the Wachowskis themselves, is that the film is all about choices. The characters have to make choice. Do you want to take the red pill, blue pill? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? It's all about choices, and it's about the establishment trying to control them. And if you think about the Wachowski brothers, they will probably go through that in their heads in terms of their sexuality. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see that. It's the choices you make will be determined also who people around you will affect.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it makes a mockery of the choice, because in the film, the machines control
even the
choices that they make in the real world, and it's like, I guess that's what was troubling them at the time. That they've I've been given this human body. But it doesn't matter. That's not the choice I'm making. I am female. So it could be just one massive metaphor for transgender issues.
Could well be. That'd be a good one to look into. Well, we'll have to see what happens with the fourth, won't we?
Yeah.
But also, what should we finish off? Should we do the great song out of it? Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'll put that on as the end. Yeah, and not only that, is I can actually play this song a little bit as well. The piano bit, I can play it. I taught myself to play it. Oh no, you see, I influenced this guy.
I met this guy in France. In fact, I went on this wine trip, and there was another guy who was on the tour with me, and he loved wine. And he said he was a musician too. So I played him this little ditty. I kept whistling it all the way around.
And he was like, "Can I use it?" And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead, no problem." It's alright, man. Good not to do that on all the pods now. Cliff's influence of the Gremlins. Right, I'll say goodbye to Fatboyslick and thank you for coming back to Sheps Deep Dive.
I'll be back. I'll be back.
I'll be back. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Right. See you later.